Hello, folks. Everyone give a wave. This is the office hours from Stately. This is my first time hosting it because our usual illustrious host, Laura, is away. Here we're going to talk about all things Stately. It's actually been about a month, right, since we last had a sort of chat all together. And it's definitely been my first office hours in like a bunch of time as well. So I'm looking forward to catching up with everyone, hearing what everyone's been up to. And yeah, we've got a load of stuff to talk about. So we are Stately. We build applications that make your developer experience life better and help you plan out your application code and build all the cool stuff that you're wanting to build. And let's go around those circles. So my name is Matt Pocock. I'm a developer advocate at Stately. Farzad, what have you been up to?
I'm Farzad. I'm an engineer in Stately.
Anders?
And I'm Anders. I'm also an engineer here at Stately.
And I'm Andarist. I'm the guy who gets pinged on GitHub for help, and a junior developer at Stately.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Hello, Cedric. Feel free to, if you're peeling in through the chat, ping us a question. This office hours is all about getting questions from you folks and getting feedback from the community and talking to you all. Like, it's really cool that we still do this. We're broadcasting on YouTube and Twitter. So if you want to see what's going on and leave us a comment, then YouTube is the best place for it. So why don't we get started? The first thing we've got to announce is that David actually right now, because of a quirk of scheduling, is giving a talk at React Norway, or it should be happening pretty soon, I think. And you can check out the live stream at reactnorway.com. This is, anyone know what his talk is on? I really should have done my research before I jumped into this.
I'm going to bet on the state charts.
Yeah, state charts. We like state charts at Stately, so it's probably on state charts.
I think it's going to give the same use effect talk.
The same use effect talk? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Recycling the same material again. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so that's pretty exciting. We've been at a bunch of conferences as well. So I got to meet, in fact, none of you for the first time, but I did get to meet a bunch of other people on our team, like David and Gavin and Jenny as well at, what was it called? Remix conference as well. Anders, you've been, Andarist, you've been at Reactathon, but that was a while ago now, right?
Yeah.
And I think, what's the next conference that we're all going to?
I think the next one is going to be React Finland, September.
Yep. Right, Finland in September.
Probably a good chunk of the team is going to be there.
Yep, your home conference.
Yeah.
That's extremely
Let's hope that I make it.
But if you are at React Norway and for whatever reason tuning into us, then please go and see Jenny and David. They're at the booth there. But we have a bunch of things to demo for you today. And the first demo is going to come from our very own Anders. And Anders, would you like to take it away and start talking about all the cool stuff that you especially have been working on?
I will try.
I want to keep vamping while you start sharing your screen.
Okay,
Let me know when you're ready.
I've hit share.
Let's go.
Okay, so what I've been mostly working on this week and last week is kind of making machines more discoverable. So we already had the notion of making machines public. By default, they're public right now, but we just returned like a really long list, so it could be hard to find machines. And this week, we're starting work on kind of improving that. We're not where we want to be yet, but we've started by adding search. We already had search, but more interactive search to the Discover page. And this is kind of where we're at right now. And this is launching today, so you can play with this now. So if you go to the Discover page now, you can search for free text. So if you want to look at if anybody has done any machines around auth, you can put in auth, and you'll see that there's 316 machines about auth here. And on the left, you have some filters. So you can say, okay, I only want to look at auth from this awesome user, Mark Bennett, and it'll filter down. And as I said, we hope on building on this in the future. So if you have any good ideas around how to best find machines and how to make them appear, yeah, just let us know. And also let us know what you think about this new search.
It's the really exciting thing for me is that you can actually filter on different features that your state chart has. So you can filter on, like, it looks like you can just filter by entry actions, right? Or history states or things like this.
Exactly. So if you would just want to see machines that has like invoke actions or invoke service calls, you can just hit invoke here and you'd filter that down, and you can see there's 529 machines using that feature. And you can combine them, so you can say I want them with guards as well. So
can we please see how many machines do we have in the registry that include a history state? Because that's rarely used.
Yeah, we have 42, the magic number.
The meaning of life is history. Beautiful.
Exactly.
That's so awesome. This was a ton of work, right?
It was a lot of work, but we have a strong foundation now to build on, and maybe in the future we'll even open up an API so you can build stuff that searches through our machines using this.
Totally. I've got a question in from the community. This is from Eric. This is for you, Anders. My machines that I edit with the visual editor via the VSCode plugin, are they public by default or private by default?
With the visual editor via the VSCode plugin, I guess they're not. I bet you could better answer that, Matt. I think I'm not entirely sure, actually.
Yep, they're 100% private. So when you're inside the VS Code, it doesn't send anything up to our public database or anything like that. It doesn't even touch it, actually. All we do is we just communicate through window.post message between the iframe that's in the VS Code plugin and your code, essentially. So the things that you edit with VS Code are 100% private, but the things that you build in the registry are by default public and searchable here.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Yeah, and the things you edit using the online editor, it goes public as soon as you save your machine to any kind of system. If you haven't saved it yet, it's just like the local storage history or something.
Totally. Yes, Eric. Eric hopes that the post message uses a state machine. It does, actually. It's a really nice state machine too. That's open source, I think, as well. So you can go into the XState tools repos to check that out. We're going to. There's another question here from John, which is any ideas about how to identify quality machines? Like, what does a good machine look like? Is it stars or bookmarked or something? Anders, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, we have. It's actually we're testing it right now, but we have the notion of liking machines. So you can like a machine, and we're going to surface that onto the machines soon, onto this search list, so we can kind of show how many stars the machine has. So that's one of the upcoming features, that we can kind of filter and rank them by popularity or stars. So that's coming soon.
Totally. Farzad in particular, like, this is something we've been talking about for a long time, like having these machines be discoverable. Like, what are your thoughts here? This must be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I think this is pretty cool, especially when the registry grows and like people start building more stuff with it. You would see that like your searches are going to have like more results, so you're going to have a better chance of learning from them as well. It's like reading source code, but in this case, the source code is just a state chart config. So it's a good way for us to also discover new ideas and new ways of modeling and refer to them in the docs or examples or anywhere else.
Totally. Yeah, very, very cool. There's also, I think, Anders, I've got you down to demo something else, right? Which is a little bit of a change to the way that the routing works with arrows, or like there's been some sort of really neat change there, right?
Yeah, this is a very early sneak peek, and I got to show it off since David's not here today, but this is actually his brainchild. He's been working on making the edges a lot smoother when you move them around. And I have these two small GIFs here to kind of explain. You can see as I move these two events around that the lines are they're kind of messy, let's say. So this is how it works today. And if I move to this other one, this is how it's going to work in, I guess, not in the not too distant future. And as you can see, the lines are much smoother. They don't have as many bends, and just when you actually play with the editor with this turned on, it feels a lot smoother in general.
Yeah, it's been really nice to have a play with this sort of even at an early stage. Andarist, like in particular, like I know that you've been sort of like, it's mostly when we have a difficult problem with the SVG stuff, it's like we say, David, can you please help us out? Like, did you review this PR? Have you seen this code, or like Andarist? Sorry to spring it on you. This is terrible having Anders and Andarist like in the same stream. Can I call you by Mateusz? Is that allowed? Or do you have to go by your pseudonym?
No, no. My name is fine. I got used to it over the years.
Did you have a look at this code, or have you seen this before? Like, this is some complicated algorithmic stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm not really that much into this part of the code base there, so it kind of scares me. So I think I've skimmed through it. That's David's magic, and I didn't really try to understand it too much. So that's his baby.
Yeah, definitely his baby. Yeah, we're getting some nice feedback here. Matish Pocock. Did I? Oh, damn. Mateusz.
I can see we got another question around search about tagging, and that's actually also one of the things we have in the pipeline. Right now, you can type in keywords for systems, but it's sort of like a hidden feature. So we want to move that to machines and surface that on the list you see, and also make that toggleable in the search filters list.
Totally. This is John's question asking, might help the community if I can tag some of my machines with "I don't know what I'm doing, do not copy." One thing
I'm copying that tags to all my machines as well.
Yeah, exactly. my default tags. One thing that we are planning to build, Farzad, I'll come to you with this, is private machines in the future. So being like, currently all your machines are public by default, but in the future we're thinking of changing that and allowing you the ability to create private machines too, right?
Yeah, this is going to be somewhat similar to how Code Sandbox or other services like that work. Yeah, where you can have like private machines by default, public machines, or unlisted machines that are only accessible like GitHub gists with the URL. Or we could also like find ways to build it into the team subscription, so you can scope it down to like certain groups in the team or the entire organization or things like that. Yeah, but I think, John, what you really need is something like GitHub archiving the repo. It's kind of like an indication that I don't know, or it's like a totally deprecated code. Please do not use that. Something like that.
Exactly. It's quite nice with state charts too that it's not like any of these features are going away. It's not like history states are going to get deprecated, or it's quite nice being able to just knowing that these state charts will persist and will still be relevant even 10 years down the line or something, which is pretty nice. Eric says, what is this public by default? After Jay says, should probably be private by default. Yeah, I mean, that's true. Anyone want to jump in on this?
I can take a shot at it since I'm fairly new to the team. So having machines be private at all is a new thing that's still being worked on. So right now we don't even have the private option. So I guess when that's done, we'll have a discussion to see if private by default makes more sense going forward. So good input.
Totally. And one more from Jay, which is quality over quantity. Docker had this issue with millions of random images. Like, yeah, we knew, like, this is something we're quite cognizant of, and being able to sort by popularity is definitely going to be something that's really useful. And also the ability to sort by like forking machines too. Like, any other sort of closing thoughts on this, Anders?
Yeah, I mean, the search algorithm is fairly complex already, and it will take into account how many times actually what people search for and what our users find useful going forward. So, and we can kind of tweak that. So hopefully we will show quality by default in the long run.
Tasty. Right, it's time for a little Matt Pocock demo, because why not? It's just a little teeny feature that I'd love to sort of talk about, and we didn't take that long to ship, but people have been asking for it for a long time. Which is so far the only way that you could sort of zoom in and out in the editor was with this kind of command scroll here, which I think, Andarist, you were the one who built a lot of these interactions, right? And so what I did was I added something on top of the code, which was, I'm just going to reach over to my laptop over here. We now have pinch to zoom. Lovely. Pinch to zoom. I did a workshop at JSConf, and this was like the top recommended feature was pinch to zoom by like some distance. Everyone was just going, oh, why can't I pinch? It's horrible. But this is just, yeah, so much nicer. Like, Andarist, this code, I think, this code has a lot of state machine. Mateusz, this code has a lot of state machines in, right? Like, there's a lot of interaction
it's
stuff
all
going on.
driven by composed state machines. Even like there are some inner machines and the outer one that is notified by events, and also all of that there. Yeah.
There's like a drag session machine from memory as well, where it keeps track of everything that you've got going on in here. Yeah, machines all the way down. But no, that's just a little piece on top. Sorry, Anders.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think I had the pleasure of reviewing this one, and since we're dogfooding machines at Stately, this implementation was like a one-line change. It was so sweet.
It's so nice. Yeah, just listening for a few more events, a couple more services. It's so cool.
Yeah.
It's so nice. Like this could be one of the real world examples of how state charts help you scale your solutions without scaling the complexity.
Totally. Yeah, I wish we could show you this code, but of course it's closed source. Eric says, I want a hotkey to zoom to view all even more than pinch to zoom. A zoom to view all? Andarist, this sounds like fit to screen, right? Or muted.
Sorry, pinch to zoom.
Yeah, we're
okay.
here.
So like fit to content, I guess, like this sort of the interaction. Okay, and hotkey, I think. Like
we do have that. That's a combination of shift and one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's even listed in the menu.
There you go. Look at this. Fit to content. Yeah, fit to screen. Ta-da! There's like a teeny little bug with it, but yes, it works pretty well.
Yeah, it is.
There we go, Eric.
Shifted. But yeah, it works.
I think that's the fastest we've ever responded to user feedback. We heard the user feedback, went back in time, added it, and now it's here.
Yeah, that's true time travel development.
Yeah, time travel debugger. So yeah, that's the little exciting thing that I wanted to talk about. Anders, I think I've got you down for one more exciting thing too, right? Or just something that you wanted to talk about.
Just one small thing here about nesting typegen files. So I don't know if you want to put my screen back on.
Oh, yeah.
It's right there. Thanks. So we mentioned this when we were on the last time, that we had an upcoming feature where our friend Eric, also here today, he did a tweet about how to use VS Code's new file nesting feature to neatly tuck away your typegen files. So, I mean, obviously we jumped on that, took the opportunity to automate it. So if you're using the latest version of our VS Code extension and not already using this file nesting feature, you should see a little pop-up once you open a file with a machine in it, asking you to turn this on. And then we'll automate the process for you, going from the standard way of seeing files, where you have the source file and the typegen file next to each other inside VS Code like this. After you turn it on, you'll get this little arrow where the typegen file is actually hidden beneath the source file, which is very neat. And we have this blog post we are linking to in the pop-up saying, if you want to learn more about this feature, it takes you here. So here you can learn more about what's actually going on, and you can also get some information about how to disable this again if you want to. Yeah, so shipped and in use.
Pretty sweet. Yeah, you can see this blog post at Stately AI blog, along with a couple of other things I think we posted this week too. Starting to get more productive on the advocacy front, and definitely getting productive on the improving user experience throughout the VS Code extension front. So Anders, great job. Anyone got any closing thoughts on the typegen files and like?
I just have a quick question about that. How does the typegen work? Like, not the typegen, sorry, the nesting file names work technically. Is it something that the VS Code exposes? Yeah. And if it's because the typegen files follow the same exact name as the code, like there's a code file and there's a typegen file. Do they have the
Exactly.
same name? That's why this one goes nested under that one?
Yeah. So we use a naming pattern for our typegen files, which is based on the machines or the source files. And then VSCode, since version 1.67 in April, they introduced this feature where you can nest files based on patterns you type in yourselves. And they have like standard features in there. So I think they nest yarn log files on the package JSON and some standard stuff. And then we just add our own typegen to the standard config.
This is going to be really useful, nesting the state machine files under components.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat, actually. Like the idea that you could have like a component file and then have a component.typegen or component.machine file. Yeah, that's pretty neat. Yeah. Or as I like that Eric just paraphrased Anders' answer in a 2-word sentence. Yes, Farzad. Nice. We should invite Eric on here, actually. I met him when he was in Remix. He's a very, very cool guy. I've known him for years on Twitter, too. Cool. Thank you so much, Anders. So we now have a new way of providing feedback to Stately and sort of having your say on our approach and what we're sort of like doing going forward. And that is called Canny. And I'm going to just share my screen a little bit. And do I have the link to Canny open is the question. Yes, I do right here. You can go to statelyai.canny.io and it looks kind of like this. I've not actually sort of played with this, so I'm going to be discovering it just along with you guys. But you can give feedback about all the different parts of what we offer, whether that's the editor. And you can actually vote on the things that you want to see going forward. We found this just a lot more powerful than GitHub and a lot sort of easier to use for non-technical people as well. So here, for instance, we've got machine schema. So you should be able to provide schema for events, actions, guards, etc. You can sign in to upvote things, and you can even see all the people who voted for it too. It's made by some guy called Rasmussen. It's not you, is it? You didn't make this. Come on. You got a full-time job, Eric. No, can't be him. If it is him, I'll be shocked. But this is just a beautiful setup, really. Andarist, you've been like, you're the open source king. You've like done a lot of work with GitHub and stuff. Like, this just feels different from GitHub, right? And it's like a different interface for non-technical people to use. And what do you think of it?
Yeah, I think it's very nice that you like it just automatically aggregates and ranks those issues. So it's really cool. I've seen something like that in the past, actually used by Webpack. I think like they just had a custom page for this sort of things, and you had like points for voting. So you had like 10 points. You could assign them to various issues and so on. And yeah, it makes like prioritization easier for teams. And yeah, for us, it's especially great that it is actually, decoupled from GitHub, as other non-devs might just want to give some feedback here and to provide some input here. So yeah, it's quite cool here. You can actually, I think, on GitHub like sort stuff by reactions, etc. But like that's not the same. So and that's already like pre-built view. So it's great.
Yeah, this is super duper cool. Yep, nice work, Eric. Well done building this. This is amazing. I don't know where you found the time. Incredible stuff. David says there's a GitHub integration. It integrates with Linear too. Isn't David supposed to be preparing a talk right now or talking right now? Well, okay. I mean, multitasker, very impressive. And Eric says it's not him, but we know it's him. There are only so many people called Rasmussen in the world, I think, really.
Runs in the family, building products.
Exactly. Runs in the family. Your brother, Andrew, your twin brother. Let me see. So feel free in the comments. This is your window now to ask some questions. I'm going to ping a couple of questions to the folks here. But if you've got any questions about our roadmap, about any of our products, about XState, anything you want answered, this is your chance to ask them in the comments, and we'll get to them in the end. But we've got a couple of other projects that we've been working on, right? So we've got some little things in the works that aren't quite ready for demos yet. But Mateusz, why don't you start us off with what you've been working on?
Okay, so I have been working in the past on like browser extension MVP, getting familiar with the APIs and pains of that development. And actually, I got back to this lately and spent a couple of days on it, fighting with it. And I even might be able to give a sneak peek, I guess. It's yeah. Do you see my screen? Because I'm not sure.
You're up. Whoa.
Yes. So that is like maybe a little bit confusing because it's a real visception here. Because we have on the top our like standard visualizer that is publicly available, and we have the very same application just like configured on the bottom. You can even like notice some subtle differences, like on the top in the real application we have this code panel, whereas like in the extension we just don't need it, and we even don't want to have it here. There's no avatar of mine, and so on. So like it is the visualizer bundled as a component and embedded in the Chrome extension here, or rather like browser extension. And so it's already working. We can click around it here. So you see the state being reflected on the visualizer, because like that's the very same machine that is inspected. It's actually this machine from the code panel that got visualized here on the left and also sent to the extension on the bottom. So we can, we just have everything that we already had in the visualizer here sort of for free, because that was implemented. So we have the state panel, we have those events here, the event log, all of the actors that are being inspected listed here, and so on. So I just have one for now. The point is it's usable. We just need to spend some more time on it, figure out some issues around like the initialization of it, and some layout issues, because they for some reason just happen from time to time, and I just didn't have time to figure it out yet. But the point is it's coming and it's working. So yeah.
So Matthias, quick question: how is this supposed to be used? What sort of integration and use cases it would have?
So this is mainly for inspecting your running applications. So you'll just install the XState extension from the Chrome store, or like in Firefox, or wherever extensions are able to be executed, and so it will just hook into your application, and you will be able to inspect the current state of all of your running machines, live machines in your app. So yeah, it's just like, an extended developer tool for Stately, just something to make it easier to interact with our machines through the extension.
Right. When we
So
say
cool.
Connect to the running services, we mean like using the window frame as the DevTools namespace, and then connect to the running services that are registered in the window frame. Is that how it works technically?
Sort of, yeah. Like we need to, from the content script, so the script that is being injected by the extension itself on the page, we need to register another script that is being executed on the main page, because that's just how content scripts work, because we need access to the actual window object on the main page, whereas this first content script is sort of isolated. So from that main world script, we just like in there, we just expose a global object for now, and I guess like there is just no easier way to do this. And XState will just like communicate through that global object. It will like register on it all registered machines. You might be able to like because at the moment it is how it has been working for all of those years. You need to actually like pass a boolean to the inspect call or like use inspect or whatever, it's DevTools true. So only those machines are being inspected for now. But I'd like to make it easy to just hook into everything, because I personally don't want to like configure that flag on every inspect call that I'm doing in my app. So I'd like to make it easy to like enable that globally. So yeah, like XState as a library will use that global object, that injected global object, and in there will be some logic to post message that through hoops through like this content script to the background script to the DevTools script, and finally to the panel script that lives actually in here. But yeah, it all works based on post message and stuff.
This is very exciting, especially because this is the first stepping stone towards being able to bundle the entire visualizer locally. And that means if you have like a documentation later on, you might be able to bundle the visualizer as a React component and use it alongside MDX in your own websites. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the roadmap.
Yeah, like that's basically what I've done somewhat, or at least partially, in this refactor PR. Like I had to restructure some of our components to decouple it from the next application that is wrapping it like usually, and to remove some dependency on Monaco editor and so on, because I just didn't want to include that in the extension. We don't really need it there. And it's a huge dependency, and also one that is loaded from external source, and that's kind of a no-go for publishing an extension to the store. Everything should be available locally. We still have one dependency, maybe not loaded like from an external source, like from CDN, but it is just a copy-pasted script from CDN just to make it local there, which is this whole Elg.js that is a layout engine that drives the layout in here. And we'll see how it goes with the publishing story and so on. But it is like non-NPM sort of dependency of this whole thing. But the rest is already decoupled, and it's just a component that is just rendered by yet another application, whereas that yet another application is this web extension wrapper. So yeah.
So Matt, I'm sorry that I took the mic here and I'm talking too much about this. For the Stately official blog, I hacked around the visualizer a lot, then worked on top of Matt's PR that enables you to send your machine configuration using the LZ string compress strings to the visualizer and have it inspected remotely, but rather it feels like it's rather a local service, but it's really not. It's talking to the inspector and the visualizer remotely. We have that in the official Stately blog. We have never used that. We have that MDX component, but I hacked around it a lot to get it working, and it's working pretty well. I imagine after we get to bundle the visualizer, I can just basically drop this as a React component and use that locally without any sort of trouble.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah. Like there's still some work that has to be done to perhaps like create a better source of like the inspected machine for that component and so on, because I'm a little bit hacking around there. But yeah, like that's the idea, and that's the goal.
We have a ton of questions for this. Like, people are really excited about this. First of all, I think you answered this about John's question, which is, does your machine need to be run with a debug flag? So I guess like DevTools true is our traditional debug flag. And I think that was a yes, right, Mateusz?
Yeah. So for now, it is a requirement to use that flag, but I'd like to remove it, make it configurable, opt-in or something. We'll have to figure it out, but yeah, I'd like to make it at least possible to just enable it globally.
Yep. Another one from John is, what happens if there are multiple machines running, so multiple things that you want to inspect at the same time?
So those would be just available in the actors panel. So you would be able to just select the one that you are interested in, and that one machine would be visualized on the left, which is basically like how how the visualizer already works. Like we don't support displaying multiple machines on a single screen. You always focus on a single one, but you can switch between them, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Nice. And I think in general, this replaces or improves on the flow that we had before around XState inspect, because XState inspect was a little function that or package that you could call, and from any browser, you'd be able to open up an iframe that would be able to inspect your running machines and also send events to them as well, which is pretty cool. And it sounds like all that functionality would be covered by the Chrome extension.
Yeah, exactly. Like at the moment, even the whole thing is using XState inspect to just make it like faster to develop that in a slightly hacky way, but it works. So it's the very same code. There are some things that the XState inspect package is able to do right now that the extension might not be able to. For example, you can customize the serializer there for passing those messages around between frames or windows or whatever. Like we can't accept any random code at the extension level from you, so that's just not an option there. We just need to have like a single algorithm there for serialization and all of that, but that's just like inherent limitation of this approach. And I don't think like it should be that much important for it. We can always just detect stuff that can't be serializable, just like fully, and just replace it with some stubs or whatever, and just display like what kind of a thing this is without actually like, sending the whole thing through the post message layer. Totally.
One from Genghis Dong, great name. I thought the DevTools flag was for an extension in the first place. Was sad when I couldn't find it. Yeah, it makes sense. Like this feels like a more natural approach, I think, than the approach we had before. Do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's way more natural for me to have that as part of the extension or of the tool that I am actually using all of the time, and I already have it open, than to be forced to open another window and stuff like that. And it just should sync better with the host application in this regard. So
yeah, being able to move the panel around is so nice as well. Yeah. Just a lot more natural. And of course, whenever we release anything, there's always the question of, will you support more platforms? Will you support this? Will you support that? Firefox support also coming?
Yes, somewhere down the road. Actually, it shouldn't be too much of a hassle. From what I've heard, the only partial problem that we might encounter right now is that Chrome requires a new version of like this manifest that is v3, and they just make that a requirement like during the last spring, whereas Firefox is still using manifest v2, so I need to figure out how to like prepare both and have it all compatible with each other and stuff like that. So.
Yep. One more from Eric, which is I kind of want a way to choose any of my machines to watch the state of in DevTools. It makes sense to have that control in the dev tool itself, being able to see all of your actors that are running and then be able to pick which ones you want to look at, instead of having to specify the dev tools true in the code itself. I think that's sort of what you're saying, right?
Yeah, if that's the question, then yeah, like that sort of reiterates over what we have already been saying about that. If that's not the actual question, then perhaps Eric could rephrase to make it a little bit more clear, because yeah. I'm not sure.
I might have screwed him over there by just asking a different question to the one he actually intended. All right, so feel free again to drop any questions that you have in the chat. We'll get to them at the end. Next up, Farzad, you've been working on something too, right?
Right, yeah. So we've been silently planning to work on a bigger work called XState parity for the editor, which we call the studio these days. So the idea is that we want to be able to have a parity between the XState API and the features that we have in the editor, meaning that you should be able to add context, the context schema, update them, see and track them in the simulation mode and things like that. You we should be able to support events, assignments, custom actions, built-in actions, event payloads, and all that in the editor. And this is like a very, very big plant work right now, but we're working on the MVP of the context feature. I actually got it working and shipped the pre-MVP version of the context yesterday. It's in code review process right now, and we're tweaking the designs and the experience. We're still trying to kind of find the best experience that we can provide here. And we're betting on a standard called JSON schema for serializing your context data to be able to move it through the network and to transfer it between the VS Code extension and the editor, for example. When we ship the MVP, this is going to be only available in the standalone web studio, and the VS Code extension is going to work as is, but you won't be able to modify the context in the VS Code extension, like the embedded editor in the VS Code extension. That's going to be read-only for the MVP. And this is going to be the beginning of the work that will end in such exciting features such as exporting to TypeScript, for example. And these are the things that we're going to have down the road. We just have to scope down the MVPs of those as well. Right now, this is just going to be the context schema, and hopefully after that, assignments, and kind of having a visual way to see them in the canvas of the editor and to be able to interact with them.
It feels like we're sort of pulling more into, we want to support kind of low code, the low code approach to building state machines, and pulling more information into the visual editor. So being able to actually manipulate values, for instance, assigned to the context based on events. It's going to allow for some seriously cool stuff going forward, right? Like, is there anything that sort of comes to mind for you that like use cases for assigning to the context in the editor?
Yeah, one of the very exciting features that we're going to implement in the scope of the MVP is that you would be able to track the updates to the context values in the simulation mode. So this is going to be like a sort of unit testing or debugging, that you look at the context and see how it updates in different states in the simulation mode. And for me personally, this is one of the ways that I track and debug my state machines and verify the model that I have in the state machine. And this is going to be even easier now if you provide it in the simulation mode. Another thing is we're going to be able to have a rich way of enabling constraints and validations on the context values. For example, you want to say, I want this count property in the context of my machine to be an integer, but I only want it to be between 3 to 10. So we kind of like validate the assignment actions for you in the editor, saying that this is going out of the range, for example. These are just, a few of the things that we can do. The sky is the limit here.
Totally. Having more of that in the editor brings us more towards a feature where you can code something in the editor and like deploy it live and just have everything work, basically, have everything.
And this is going to be really great, Matt, because JSON schema is the standard that we're adopting, and there are some automated ways to convert the JSON schema standard to TypeScript interfaces. So when you export to TypeScript later on, after the MVP is shipped, you should be able to at least get like a very good starting point for the exported code. I wouldn't say it would be a perfect TypeScript integration, TypeScript and statically analyzing the code. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be very, very good for getting you far enough.
Totally. And it being the editor already knowing the structure of the code and the structure of the state chart especially means you can do really cool stuff with TypeScript that is just not possible when the code is in your editor. This is sort of why we had to build typegen on top of the code. Cool. Thanks for that, Farzad. We'll, I guess we'll check in next week or check in the next office hours. So I'm going to go down the questions that we got in the chat and kind of answer a few, and then we'll wrap up, I think. So if you've got any questions, this is your last chance. Please ask them now. Angelo says, love what you guys have been doing recently with restraining the auto layout. Honestly, that has really encouraged me to use the editor more. Yeah, this was David's work, I think. Did anyone review this PR? Farzad, you're nodding your head.
I reviewed that, but someone needs to review my review.
Yeah, this is the sort of stuff we are terrified.
Yeah, but honestly, like when David works on SVG stuff, interactivity, and layout stuff, it's just black magic to me.
Totally. What we did here was we made the usually before, when you edited the code, anything on the left-hand side, then it would auto lay out everything in the right-hand side. But we've found a way to make that more appealing and do less auto layout, basically, which is, yeah, it's been really good, and it's just a great upgrade. Valentin asks, are you guys using centered? Anders, you've been having a crack on centered, right?
I think we all three have, me and Matthias and Farzad. We've been working together we have a stately group. We haven't been managing to catch each other as much as we want, I guess, but we've been using it. I really like it. I mean, yeah, it keeps me centered. One thing about the auto layout, I saw a cool suggestion from one of our users today. It's like continuous auto layout. So whenever you do any changes, it'll do rerun auto layout. That's basically something I'd love to.
Like format on save is prettier.
Exactly. So sort of like a prettier for state machines.
If you want to see that happen, go to Canny and tell us about it, please. Yeah. I'm 80% certain I hear your guiding voice in that app. I'm 100% certain I didn't contribute that, so maybe they've created an AI model out of my office hours output.
Time to call your lawyers.
Yeah, I think so. They did not secure the rights for that. And in case you don't know, like Centered is built by Andrew Rasmussen, so he's a really amazing developer working on this stuff. Question for you guys. I've previously used a lot of create model patterns with TypeScript. Mateusz, fair warning, I'm going to come to you with this. Action event type help. Are there new ways to do this without create model?
Yeah, so like the current recommended way is to use the typegen. With create model, you could just declare types for your events up front with those like factory functions. So with the typegen, you lose that. Like you can still use that kind of an abstraction, but you are not forced to do that. But what create model didn't do for you, it didn't actually help keeping you in check in regards to like what events can, like with what events particular actions can actually be called. Whereas with the typegen, this is it's like whole point. So we embed that like metadata about all of the transitions and stuff like that happening in the machine, and based on that, XState is able to just narrow down your event union to those specific events that can be received there by those actions, by those invokes, by those guards, and all of that. So it's much more powerful actually than the create model approach. And we will be just phasing out the create model in V5. It will be removed. So
yeah, which I think is the right decision too. It's had its moments. Got a question from Cedric from a few minutes ago, which was about the viz and the Chrome extension, which Mateusz is working on. Does the sequence diagram will come again? The sequence diagram was, I'm not sure whether it was in like the original viz, but it's definitely in XState inspect, right?
Yes.
Which opens a window where you can zoom all that out. Farzad, why don't you take this?
I don't think we're going to add that to the visualizer, at least in the near future, but this is definitely planned because I was in that planning meeting as a sort of a special view for the editor. So you're going to get sequence diagrams in the editor as well, next to simulation mode.
In the visual editor? Ooh.
Yes.
I did not know that. That's very awesome. So yeah, I think our general plan is to make the editor sort of take over some of the responsibilities of the visualizer. So to pull them all through the editor, basically. So you've got a sort of common interface. And that's very exciting that you've got, that you're planning a sequence down. I didn't know that. That's very cool.
Oh, actually, if you know the whole plan, you're going to get excited even more.
Okay. Well, just Discord me afterwards. Angelo says, am I correct that typegen can figure out which event, but still not the full type structure of the event, Andarist?
And the answer is no, you're not correct. That's the beauty of typegen. Like we only embed those strings in the typegen metadata, but based on this metadata, we are able to plug correct events with payloads from your original union. So we kind of like stitch the types provided to create machine call and this kind of like just JSON-like config within typegen metadata type, and we just stitch them together to create the final create machine signature for this specific machine, and the types just flow through it beautifully.
Yeah, it's very, very, very elegant. Got one more question from Carlos. Any plans to add layers to metadata dev layer business? Unsure what he means here. Anyone want to have a go? I'll take that as a no. Yeah, feel free to ask that. I think we are going to finish there. Has anyone got anything more they want to talk about, or are we okay to finish? This has been a fun one. Lots of very demo heavy.
I had an idea for a little feature in the visual editor, and I shared it with the team, and I got some upvotes for that. I'm just gonna take the initiative and build that so that we can demo it next week. This is like a shared feature between the Chrome DevTools and the Stately editor, but let's just keep it as that, and let's demo it next week.
Sounds good. A secret feature. I love it. Thank you for your time, Angelo. This has been a really, really fun one. Thanks so much for all your contributions. Thank you, Anders, who's Nelson on Twitter. Thank you, Farzad, who's Farzad YZ on Twitter. Andarist, who's Andarist Rake on Twitter, and me, who's Matt Pocock something on Twitter. This has been really fun. Thank you so much. Let's all wave while the broadcast ends.